Jessica Morden. Ms Elliott, and thanks also to the Honourable Member for Glasgow North West for securing what was a very important debate and her clear and excellent speech setting out the plight to the refugees for Nagorno-Karabakh. And it is obviously timely given the return of the IPU delegation to Yerevan, which I think all of us have turned up to the debate today. And our thanks to the IPU and to Joe Perry and our leader there, the Honourable Member for Malden, for the organisation of that. And it's also timely because of the uncertainty about the continuation of the UN aid, which the Honourable Member spoke of earlier. It was poignant for me to visit 2 years on from the previous delegation, where we were warned many times and in stark terms that whilst the eyes of the world were elsewhere, Azerbaijan would take control of Nagorno-Karabakh and Russia would stand by. And that's, I know, members of the APPG who declare an interest were on that visit, raised questions, raised debates, went to see the Minister, and I remember a particularly feisty speech by the Honourable Member for East Worthing and Shoreham on that. And that's exactly what happened following the 9-month blockade, designed to drive the ethnic Armenian population out in a brutal way, which the European Parliament has described as ethnic cleansing, which is why now we should heed the warnings from those we met in Yerevan just a few weeks ago, who told us the risk of escalation is ever present. In fact, 4 Armenian soldiers were killed during our visit there. The encroachment on the 30 villages, which the Honourable Member referred to, the incidents on the borders, the fear that Azerbaijan could use military force to impose the Zangezur transport corridor, supported by Russia, with references to Armenia as Western Azerbaijan. It is a fragile ceasefire, and I hope the Minister today will acknowledge that fear and do all he can with the levers he has and with the relationship he has with Azerbaijan to be a friend to Armenia. The subject of today's debate is rightly the fate of those driven from their homes, most of whom have ended up in Armenia, although some in Russia and Europe. We talk of the 100,000 plus refugees, almost the entire population, as others have said, but we should also remember the 40,000 displaced in the 2020 conflict. 1 in 30 of Armenia's population is now from Nagorno-Karabakh, and although the government has tried to be generous with the payments, which have been referred to by the Honourable Member, housing, psychological support, employment, it is an enormous number to integrate, and we'll need a long-term plan for those exposed and facing an uncertain future. And like other Honourable Members, we will never forget those refugees we met in Jamuk, and we promised with them to give a voice to them, and we are doing so today. They were subjected to a 9-month blockade, lacking food, medicine, energy, fuel, surrounded and very isolated. We heard of those kills, those injured by shrapnel, those forced to walk the 3 days to Armenia as fuel was only sold at inflated prices if they could get it, those who died on the walk, the mothers who boiled their sweets to get sugar into their children, and the reports of the Russian peacekeepers who sold food at inflated prices, exploiting human misery. And their arrival with absolutely nothing but the scars that they carried from that blockade, too fearful ever to return home if ever they could. We saw on our visit the generosity led by the Mayor and the Governor of the local authorities and the local communities who are trying to help, but the magnitude of the problem is beyond what Armenia can cope with. International aid and humanitarian aid has come, but more will be needed. 60 international and local organisations have helped. Armenia has taken out a loan from the World Bank, and the diaspora, including the community in South Wales, and I thank them for that, has helped, but longer-term integration will take more, with housing and employment a priority. Resolving humanitarian issues must be prioritised alongside diplomatic negotiations, so it would be good to hear from the Minister today what more the UK government can do to address the plight of the refugees with international partners right now to address the scale of the problem. And we've talked about the £1 million in aid and how that should be increased. What the Minister knows about the UNHCR response plan, which sets out relief efforts until the end of this month, what happens next? And more generally, what conversations is the government having with the government of Azerbaijan regarding the right to return for those who are displaced, with the Armenians freezing membership of the CSTO and significantly rebalancing its international relations? What practical steps is the UK taking to embrace Armenia's pivot to the West? And can I also join other honourable members in asking ministers about reports the government encouraged businesses to get involved in the building of Nagorno-Karabakh, exploiting what is a horrific situation. With Armenia's reliance on its neighbour for trade, energy and grain, what more can this government do to build on the strength of, I know the Minister has been twice in recent times, build on the strength of those ministerial visits and the strategic partnerships to cooperate on things like energy projects, infrastructure, transport, defence? May I also raise the issue of acknowledging the genocide in 1915? I would point out in Cardiff we have the first genocide memorial in the UK, which many of us join members of the community in their commemorations there, and also join other honourable members in their points about the destruction of the cultural sites and the cultural artefacts, particularly the caja that we saw, I hope I said that right, that we saw when we visited the Catholicos, and as the honourable members have said, we saw just two, and they were absolutely beautiful and ancient, but we were told that there were thousands more destroyed. It's a very good turnout for this debate today, not least in the very busy public gallery. So please, will the Minister take that and acknowledge that we in this Parliament care about the refugees from Nagorno-Karabakh and care about Armenia and want our government to actively help strengthen the relationship and be a friend to Armenia. And as the Honourable Member for Ealing said so well earlier on, our voice in this place should be stronger.